What's up guys, welcome to this review of Judy, the 2019 film all about Judy Garland, particularly about the later end of her career when she was having personal problems, she was having financial problems, and let's just say her fame wasn't quite at the height that it used to be. So this is an older Judy Garland portrayed by Renee Zellweger. What did I think of the film overall? I thought it was okay. It's okay, it's a perfectly fine film. It's kind of a paint-by-numbers biopic in many ways. If you've seen a biopic before, you kind of know what the overall structure of this film is going to be. So that's probably the biggest negative I've got about it, is that it is just another biopic, albeit with a different person as the focus. But the other slight negative is that at times it's a little on the boring side. And full disclosure, I've studied Judy Garland before, I know quite a bit about her, so this film didn't really educate me, it didn't teach me much. There wasn't much at all in this film that I was like, oh, I didn't realise that, or I didn't know about that. I kind of knew almost everything about Judy Garland and this time period and what she had been through. But the film does do a good job at showcasing that stuff. It shows you the abuse that she went through as a younger child coming into Hollywood. It shows you that she was like struggling with food and diet, how she was forced to live a certain lifestyle and do things a certain way, and how she was essentially there's some like analogies to like the Me Too movement and the whole Harvey Weinstein thing in there. I think that's deliberately been put in there, so it is a relevant film, even though it's showing you stuff from like the 30s and then also the 60s. And because some of it felt a little boring, not all of it, just some, the film does feel longer than it is. The film's actually less than 2 hours long, but it feels like it's a 2.5 hour film, and that's not really a good thing. And one of the reasons why it sometimes feels a little boring is because the pacing is on the slow side. It's constantly going slow for the dramatic scenes, and then when it's getting to the big moments, it ups the pacing a bit, as you would probably expect. But the problem is the dramatic scenes, particularly towards the first half of the film, just take a little too long to get going. So the actual story of the film doesn't start fully getting there until she goes to the UK. Well, the thing is, that doesn't happen until about like, I don't know, 2/5 of the way through the film maybe. So it takes a long time to actually get like, right, this is what the film's about. And then the ending, without going into spoilers, the ending is very near perfect, I think. It is predictable, it is your typical biopic ending, so I'm not going to go into specifics, but it ends on like a really good high note. But then all of a sudden something happens where it's like, it drops it from being perfect and just being near perfect because it goes slightly cheesy. I don't know how historically accurate that particular element was. I'm going to go into spoilers later on and touch on this, but this bit felt forced. It felt really like just adding on to something just for the sake of it. But overall, the film's story, I liked it. I do think people will enjoy this film. As for the characters, Judy Garland is the main character and Renee Zellweger is portraying her. Brilliant performance. She's going to get an Oscar nomination for this, no doubt about that. It's a fantastic performance. She portrays Judy as like almost a broken person at times. How she has had this upbringing, she's stuck in her ways and ways in which she doesn't really want to be in as well. It's just more like a force of habit that she's going through all emotions, how she's taking these pills, how she can't sleep, how she can't eat. And towards the end of the film, again, not going into spoilers, the emotion that she pulls off in some of the performances, how she realizes that her career is kind of coming to an end. She really gets that across, and she gets across how big a deal this is for her. And it also, she does a good job of showing that while she has been through all this abuse, while she has had essentially a tough life that she's had little to no control over, she's kind of portraying herself as someone who's in control of it all, even though she's kind of not. One of the best things about Renee's performance is that it humanizes Judy Garland. When you see Judy Garland, when you hear the word Judy Garland, you probably think Wizard of Oz, Meet Me in St. Louis. You think of this like big iconic actress or actor, whatever you want to call them. And what Renee Zellweger does here is actually says, right, that's just one element of her. There's actually a human character behind this, and I think that's what the film does really well, is it makes this iconic character a human and relatable. But at the same time, Renee Zellweger doesn't look like Judy Garland, and that's probably one of the biggest, not criticisms. I don't think it makes the film bad. It doesn't make the film any worse than what it is, or any better. But throughout the film, I was constantly just a little frustrated that I was looking at someone portraying Judy Garland, but she didn't look like Judy Garland. There are certain scenes here and there, and certain outfits where it's like with the lighting and so on, where it's like, yeah, I can see what you were going for here, but overall, it doesn't quite look that way. There's also a younger Judy Garland in here in flashbacks when it's showing you her in production with The Wizard of Oz. That one, she looks much closer to what the Judy Garland you expect. But then, of course, chances are most people know about that Judy Garland rather than the older Renee Zellweger Judy Garland. So it's easier to pull off the younger version, I would say. Sadly, the younger version of Judy Garland is only in these flashbacks, and she doesn't really have a ton to do except for show how she was being abused, how she was being controlled and manipulated into the Hollywood system, and then, of course, how she asked Mickey Rooney out on a date. But then there's the side characters in the movie. Some of them are just kind of there to show up, do their thing, leave. Like Michael Gambon, for example, big actor, he comes in, does his lines, leaves. It doesn't really have like a big moment in there. But then there are others who I think are really quite good. So I think his name's Rufus Sewell, who's in Man in the High Castle. He's good as Judy's ex-husband. And then one of the standouts I think is Jessie Buckley, who this year was in Wild Rose and Chernobyl, and she's going to be in a bunch of other things come forward. She's going to be a big star, and even as a side character in this film, she sticks out. She's like really grabs attention in there. Really good actor, and yeah, I can't wait to see what she does. But yeah, some of the supporting roles are a bit on the stereotypical side because, of course, it is all about Judy Garland and the closer people to her in her life. But this is a period piece, so let's get into the production. Costumes, sets, locations, brilliant. It does a good job of adhering to the time period. It is set in the 60s primarily, but it goes into the 39 area where they're doing Wizard of Oz. But most of the film takes place indoors. You never really see it outdoors. That's clearly budget limitations there. And they've done a good job of making Renee Zellweger look like an older Judy Garland. Again, I don't think she looks that much like an older Judy Garland, but the actual makeup and the hairstyle and costumes there is great. Just doesn't look like what I think they were wanting it to look like in the end. And of course the soundtrack and the score is great. They've got the classic Judy Garland songs from her movies in there, some of which you'll know, some of which maybe not so much. But one of the highlights of the film, I think, is actually the lighting. The use of the lighting in this film is brilliant. It really does a good job of setting the mood and the tone, particularly when she's on stage performing, and then when she's backstage, how they change from bright to dark, and they use some, even in the first half of the film, there's like some noir lighting going on there a bit. It really does a good job of just setting things up and saying, right, this is how the film wants to make you feel in this moment. And it kind of relates to how Judy Garland's feeling at the time as well. So really well done that way on. But ultimately, I think the big problem with the film is its pacing issues. Like I said, it feels like a 2.5-hour film, but it's actually less than 2 hours. So there are some bits where I feel like are a bit dragged out, some bits which just aren't as interesting or as captivating as they could have or should have been. The flashbacks featuring the young Judy don't always feel necessary. They kind of feel forced in here. It's as if they had like the young Judy bits and then the older Judy bits, and then they just kind of split them all up and slotted them in where they could, rather than it felt naturally spaced out. So that's what I think of Judy. I'm going to go into some really light spoilers, not much. So if you haven't seen Judy, go see it, come back, watch the rest of this. But if you are leaving, subscribe to my channel, I really appreciate that. And of course, follow me at _Grant Burton on Twitter and Instagram. Ultimately, Judy, I liked it. I think it's a decent, if just a bit more of a traditional biopic. And that's not a bad thing. But Renee Zellweger is the star. She is the highlight of this movie. She's going to get an Oscar nomination. But now, it's time for spoilers. So you've been warned, full spoilers. Not a lot to say. I'm just going to touch on the ending. The ending, I said that the ending was near perfect, but then something kind of drops it down. Well, what happens at the end, as you'd probably expect, her most famous song probably is Somewhere Over the Rainbow. So she finally does a big emotional performance, her final performance of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and it's a great moment, really emotional. She bursts into tears, she can barely get the song through, brilliant performance. She can't finish the song though. and then all of a sudden she goes silent and everyone's just there like watching her. At that point, one of two things can happen. One of the two things you would expect to happen. Either everyone just applauds her anyway because it's a hell of a performance and it's like appreciating of her, or they go the cheesy route, which is what I think they went with, and that someone in the audience stands up and sings the song instead, and then everyone in the audience stands up and sings the song. I don't know if this actually happened. I don't know how historically accurate it is, but it just felt like they had a perfect opportunity and then they took the cheesy route, this little silly route. If it did happen, fine. It's still a little cheesy though, but I'll accept it that way on. Otherwise, the ending I thought was near perfect, except for this little thing. But yeah, that's Judy. I liked it. I do kind of recommend it, especially if you're interested in Judy Garland, if you're interested in this time period of like the Hollywood system and what it does to stars. I think it might be worth going to see. So yeah, follow me Twitter and Instagram, yada yada yada. Subscribe to my channel, that's the most important thing. I really appreciate that. Until next time though, thanks for watching.